Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Milkweeds and Roses. I'm Lori. Nice to see you, especially on one of the few non-rainy days. It is sunny, it is windy, and I don't have any makeup on, so I'm going to make the intro short. Let's get right to the good stuff, shall we? I wanted to show you my blooming wisteria vine. Isn't she gorgeous? She's gorgeous. Love it. Love it. I wish you could be here to smell this. Wow. Now, this is American wisteria, so she is not as vigorous as Chinese wisteria. Nearly 5 years to get it to bloom. They don't like to be over fertilized, and you have to prune carefully or else you lose the buds. That's the way it goes. But because this is an older fence and we're talking like probably 30 years old, I don't like to have it too weighty here. So I am careful about what I grow on this fence. But the reason I'm here is not just to show you the wisteria in bloom. Let's take a look at the rose garden. It's looking awesome. Let's go. We'll start here at the arch with Teresa Bonet. She is blooming. More blooms this year than last year, and I think part of it is because I've trained some of these stems horizontally to help with the bloom, because otherwise it would just bloom, it would just grow straight up and only bloom at the top. So there are a few more opportunities here for bloom. She looks good, and it's supposed to be a bloom that is a continual bloom. Because of the spines on this one, it is a little more rabbit resistant, which I personally appreciate. So everything's looking pretty good here. And what does she smell like? Well, yeah, it's got a nice fruity smell. Sawfly is a problem, but not as much as some of the other roses I'm going to show you here. I don't like to put a lot of chemicals, in fact, any really, in the plants that I have in ground, and it's because of the bees, the pollinators. There are systemic releases that I have used in containers because it's a little more controlled. This is, let me get my shadow out of the way, John Warren clematis. Even the blooms that are done look so cool. I love this. So pretty pink blooms here and pretty pink blooms there, and hopefully they meet at the top of the trellis. Actually, behind her is sweet autumn clematis, which is coming over the fence here, which is exactly what I wanted. And again, sweet autumn clematis is usually it is a fall blooming clematis that is a vigorous grower. White flowers, very fragrant. I'm talking about this one over here. But again, you have to, I would suggest anyway, pruning it down to the ground in the fall after she's done, or at least in the early spring, to help break winter dormancy, because otherwise she's a thug and she will just go and go and go and then only bloom on the very ends. So I have seen plenty of gardens where sweet autumn clematis has gotten away from them. You do have to stay on top of that, so just a fair warning. There is an aster back in here. Again, it's another fall blooming. I have a sage blooming in here. I tucked a dahlia in here, and it may or may not work, and I acknowledge that. The rabbits liked this, whatever it was. Some leaves are starting to come back, so I just spray some animal repellent on it and hoping for the best. I have planted some little carrots in here, baby carrots, barely starting to get some of the sprouts up. I don't have the luxury of space really, so I try to mix in the food crops with the ornamentals. And yes, this is a bit a nod to the past, whether that works or not, planting marigolds near food crops. But they do attract bad bugs, so they go after that rather than the plants you're actually trying to grow. I have some types of lavender in here. I don't have good luck with lavender coming back, but since I have Russian sage back in here where it's tons of sun in the afternoon and very dry, I'm optimistic that something will happen. I also have some Edelweiss that I've planted in here. Whether that works, we'll see. Again, more sage, different types of sage. Oh, there's a bee. Hello, I'll get out of your way. You can see the plants that they like, which is gorgeous. Love it. I have some foxglove and delphiniums that are planted in here, and we'll just have to see what actually makes it. Tiger lilies, budded up. These get tall, bright orange. And the rabbits like to nibble on the leaves on the bottom. But it doesn't, well, and the top. That one's not going to bloom, obviously. So we'll see. I usually get a pretty good crop of these coming up, though, and they do multiply over the years. I have caged them now this year in old tomato cages just because they get so tall that they flop, and you kind of have to stake them up. Some delphiniums, dark blue, white bee, planted here, doing well. And back in here, I do have a Montana grandiflora clematis weaving through this rose bush, which doesn't have a lot of scent, but it's at least open enough that pollinators can get in there and get the stamens, which they like. And I wish I knew the name of this rose. The tag has been lost over the years, but it is reliable. I do remember it's hardy down to zone 3 or 4, and that's what you need in my particular garden anyway. And the same thing with this one. Now, I thought that this was I love this one the best. I really thought this was Henry Kelsey, but I'm just not sure that it is. Lightly fragrant. The outside appears brushed with white. And this bloom has gone over. I'll show you when we get some new blooms on this one. But it's very hardy. Seems not as bothered by Japanese beetles and other pests, which is a win in my book. But it comes back year after year, which I love. I have some penstemon, some more lilies back in here. Now, this is the fertilizer flop. So when we have people come to fertilize our lawns, again, the lawns, that's my husband's domain, that's not mine. But they come to fertilize the lawn, and some of that gets spilled over into my garden bed. And sage and penstemon and those types of things, they really don't like a lot of fertilizer, because if you do fertilize them, they get long and they get too wet. They get long and leggy and they flop. I've got the fairy in here, which a rabbit has gone after. Little stinker. So I spray it with Repels All. It's just an animal repellent. I have some tall allium ready to bloom. And again, they nibble on the bottom of the stems. See, look at this one right here. They pulled it out. So I'll just replant that. But what a stinker. Yeah, they tried it and went, oh wait, I don't like that. This one I had to cage with a cloche. It's a type of mum, a hardy mum. I have cat's pajamas in through here blooming, and again, once the bloom gets all done, just cut it all the ways down to see where there are new buds coming up. Cut it down to like just a few inches off the ground and they'll rebloom. Another white rose that I've had for 7 years. Tag has been lost. There is no scent, but it has open stamens. Pollinators love it. I don't know if you can see this teeny tiny little pollinator on here. Okay. All kinds of little bees and creatures that depend on pollen, that pollinate plants. It's not just bees. This has had sawfly problems, which is not unusual for roses, and it's really hard to see sawfly, to see the caterpillars. You have to turn the leaves over and look on the bottom, and you see these tiny little green caterpillars. Now, I don't see any here, but what I keep doing with this one is I take a garden hose, not, power hose or anything, but take a garden hose and just spray this in the morning so it has time to dry off. There's a little bee, and that sprays those little caterpillars off. They're kind of clumsy. They're not really good at climbing. So I just hose them down a couple times a week, and that does help a lot. Here is Louise Clements. Wow, she is gorgeous, gorgeous. And even with sawfly, she's gorgeous. And again, sawfly has a season, has a time of year that they work, and it tends to be early, and then they die off or fall off. And there are people that treat it with systemic pesticides in the early spring to prevent this. And some of the problem with systemics is that it also kills good bugs, but it just depends on what you prioritize. And whatever works for your garden. Now this particular, this is just awful sawfly here. This is quicksilver, decimated by sawfly, but they leave the blooms alone. You still get the blooms, and they are very fragrant and beautiful. And now you can see the newest flush of leaves here on the top. Tends to be, the season's over for sawfly. The blooms look great. And they bloom in a cluster at the ends. So this is just her second year. She's looking pretty good. Lady in red in here, budded up, ready to go. Sawfly free. I have a salvia pink profusion back in here. It was super pretty. Some pincushion flowers, which have gone over, but I think the seed heads are super cute. And this is Stand By Me lavender, Stand By Me clematis. So it's not a climbing clematis, it's more of a sprawling, so it'll flop. But here I have attached it to the trellis. And rabbits tend to leave clematis alone, so that's what we've got there. Over in here, I have, I think it was Al's Choice is the name of this Ito peony that we transplanted, actually lifted it in the fall because it was planted too deep. It's never bloomed. I've had it like almost this is the 5th year now, I believe. It has never bloomed. It's just planted too deep. So the foliage is healthy, but again, still no buds on this. So it's still a cute little foliage plant. I'm hoping to one day see a bloom, which will be pretty yellow and red, which would go lovely with the Niobe clematis, which I'm training to go up this ugly drain spout if I can. So, and we have Love in the Mist, little flowers over here. It's really interesting flowers, puffy little balls, and then they bloom with such an unusual bloom. I wish I had one to show you. We'll be back. Oh, wait, here's one. Can you see this? Hello. Can you see it? I don't know if you can. Here we go. Different colors. This one happens to be white, but that's Love in the Mist. And they're vigorous self-seeders, so keep that in mind. Well, it looks like maybe somebody took a nibble, decided they didn't like it, so that will work. Containers, what I have here, I have different types of geranium. Oops, pardon my shadow. Geranium, a dahlia, Pacific Jewel, finally coming up. Same thing, this is Edge of Joy dahlia, along with just a little annual that I put in the middle. I have an asparagus fern along with, same thing, this is looks like a well, I mean, yeah, geranium that I probably need to deadhead. Mint, any type of mint. Remember, if you grow mint, put it in a pot. Don't put it in the ground or it'll get away from you. More geraniums, balloon flowers, which I need to deadhead that. Okay, yes, they'll keep going. There we go. Some petunias, wave petunias. Whoops, let me get out of the shadow here. Get my shadow out of the way. Agapanthus. I've had this for 2 years in a pot. And the more they are root bound, apparently, the more they like to bloom. And look at this. As per usual, in here, a squirrel has planted a tree. So I have to keep on top of this one as often as I can. Okay, I have more dahlia in this pot, along with just a variety of annuals. Same thing with, I have to be careful here about potato vine, sweet potato vine, because they just take off. Some hardy glads and a geranium in here. So apparently this is, if I remember correctly, I think this is the type of sweet potato vine that climbs, doesn't dangle. So we'll see. Anyway, oh, and then finally have to show you my carrots, a container of carrots that are finally coming up. They're not vigorous or anything. So I have a hybrid carrot, Caracas, and I also have Black Nebula carrots that I planted in early May that are finally starting to come up. And I have put some galvanized chicken wire, it's not as scratchy, on the surface, and that is to thwart squirrels and squinnies from getting in here and burying things that make the soil toxic. After these carrots come out, I might put some type of fall plant in here. We'll just see. And this is a miniature rose. Again, sawfly. They're not particular. They'll just kind of take anything. But at least it's looking better. I replanted it in a pot that likes the sun. And this fall, I'll put it in the rose bed. Okay. Well, I think, and a very tall, mostly bloomed, this is nice, allium, very nice allium coming through here. So, looking good so far, some progress. I had some Petapalooza iris that had bloomed here, but the foliage still looks good, so I keep it. And some of these are reblooming, tall bearded iris. So long as their rhizomes can see the sun. Oh, see, scratch down in there. Don't cover them up with soil or mulch. Their rhizome needs to be exposed to the sun to bloom. All right. A clematis buried back in there that has yet to come up, but I'm optimistic. Some more iris threaded throughout here. And a baptisia, which had bloomed. It was the cream. It was a cream-colored little flower. So it continues to grow. It's a nice little plant. And mostly rabbit-proof. So is anything really? Gosh, I don't know. All right. Work continues. And as per usual in this neck of the woods, the minute I said almost done, then it started to rain. Everything changes so fast in this neck of the woods. Maybe that's the same at your backyard garden. So anyway, so much more work to do. Things are happening. Things are evolving. That is the nature of a garden. I do hope that you subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments. Like this video. I think that'll certainly help. It certainly helps me out. And let me know how things are growing in your neck of the woods. Hope all is well, and I look forward to seeing you next time here on Milkweeds and Roses. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.